Chapter 12. The St. Louis train out of Kansas City was much longer and was very crowded this day. Black and Angelica Bolique located the first class car at the front of the train this time. There were 3 first class cars, and it seemed that every seat was taken. Looks like we will be elbow to elbow today, Black said. Sure, but we have plenty of room in first class. Seems crowded to me. I'm sure it does to a cowpoke who thinks it is normal to ride the range. I'm sure you cowboys think more than 3 people in the room is a big crowd. Angelica enjoyed her own joke. You're right about that. A fella and his horse needs some space. How do cowboys manage to ever get married? Seems like a wife and a few kids would be intolerable. I wouldn't know. I wasn't around when my folks met. Here are our seats, and you are just across the aisle from my seat. They got settled in and were soon off to the east. They were out of town and well on their way when the sun started heating up the car. Black opened the window on his side, and several windows were open on the other side. But soon the locomotive smoke would come into the window. Angelica spoke to the conductor when he came by to check tickets. Why do we get all this smelly smoke today? Well, we have a strong east wind today, and we are headed straight into it. In about 2 hours, our route turns a little to the southeast, and it should be better then. Sir, is there a club car in the back? Yes, the last car, and you could use it if you please. After the conductor left, Anne suggested they go to the club car. The club car was often used by the men who smoked cigars and pipes, but early in the morning, no one was in the club car. Black and Ange added all to themselves. Mr. Tanner, this is nice, but probably not for long. Yes, the smokers will be here, I am sure. But there is a big platform here. Let's take a look. They opened the door and stood for some time on the back platform. The farm fields in that area were colorful with good crops. They returned to the car and found 2 very comfortable seats. Angelica spoke up. We should get into St. Louis Station at about 3 p.m. Your hotel, what hotel are you in? To tell you the truth, I don't have one. What? Said Black. Well, I did make reservations for the next 3 nights at the Carlton. I have meetings in that area starting day after tomorrow. Mr. Tanner, did you know the big fair is going on this week? Rooms might be very hard to come by. Who made your travel plans? A Mr. Anthony Cromer sent the information to my bank. My banker, Mr. William Norris from the bank in Tuller. Why? They did not warn you of these crowded conditions? I did not ask. I'm getting there a day early. What are your plans? I am sure it is not the fair, as you do not know anything about it. No, Ange, I actually want to go look up a relative of my mom's who I think still lives here. Well then, maybe I can help. Who is she and where does she live? Her name is Wilma Grun. She was sort of a sister to my mom, a sort of sister. Wilma was a cousin whose parents died, and she came to live with my mom's folks. She was very young and when her parents died, and she was raised like a sister to my mother. Do you know where she lives? All I know is that my grandparents, Grandpa and Grandma Blakely, lived at a place called Signal Hill. I understand that Wilma lives there now. Signal Hill? Your grandparents lived at the big house on Signal Hill? I guess so. His name was Felix Blakely. and he owned a mercantile business, I was told. Mr. Tanner, that would be the Western Supply and Mercantile. I don't know, maybe. How would you know that? Well, said Ange, it was a famous supply store for wagons moving west in the old days, I understand. All I remember is that Grandpa Blakely had a hardware supply business and he lived on Signal Hill. Then I can help. Our place is about a mile from Signal Hill, which is at the end of the trolley line. You can stay at my place tonight, and then we can easily find your aunt tomorrow if she lives near Signal Hill. Our butler, Mr. Hampton, will have the carriage at the train station, and he will take us to our place. Well, I'm not sure that would be right or appropriate. I do not want to impose. I am sure I can find some place to stay tonight. Now you listen, Mr. Tanner. We have a big house, and Mr. Hampton is the butler, and his wife, Granny Hampton, is the housekeeper. She also cooks for me when I am there, and she is a great cook. You must stay at our place. I will not take no for an answer. It is settled. Tomorrow, when you get ready, you can take the trolley to downtown. It passes right by your hotel, and that would be perfect. Ange, let me think about it. Okay, you have thought, and it is settled. Now the cigar smokers started showing up, and the two young people decided to go back to their first-class seats. The train had turned a little to the east, or the wind changed because Black could see the smoke from the locomotive going off to the right a little. On their way from the back of the train to the front, Angelica recognized another friend of her mom's and stopped to chat. Black excused himself and went on to his seat. After Columbia, the crowd on the train thinned out a bit, and Angelica found an extra seat and returned to visit with her mom's friend. Black ate a good sandwich for lunch. About 20 minutes before they arrived, Angelica showed back up in time to have the bags tagged properly for Mr. Hampton to pick up. Right on time, the train arrived at the St. Louis station. Black followed Angelica from the train, and though the station was large and it had a side doors, Ange, what are you looking for? If the weather is bad, Mr. Hamilton will bring the Brougham coupe, but with this good weather, I'm sure it will be the Surrey. There he is. It is the Surrey. Angelica introduced Black to Mr. Hampton, and he helped the butler load the bags onto the small platform in the rear of the Surrey. Soon they were making their way through the busy streets. Angelica had many questions from Mr. Hampton, who wanted to know all about her trip, and she said she wanted to wait so Granny could hear all about it. Ange kept up a steady little travelogue as they passed through the town. Between these explanations, she also kept a steady chat with the butler and the Surrey driver. After about 20 minutes, Angelica pointed to the hill ahead and said, "That, Mr. Blakely Tanner, is Signal Hill. There used to be a very large house right up on top. What happened to it?" asked Black. "Mr. Hampton, what happened to the big house on Signal Hill?" "Miss Ange, it burned down some years back. It was a beautiful place in its day. The Surrey passed the hill and turned off to the left. They traveled down a private, narrow lane and came to a bend. After the bend, he could see the house across a small lake. It was not a big mansion, but it was a very beautiful house with very well landscaped grounds. The Surrey pulled up to the front door, and Black quickly got down to help Mr. Hamilton with the bags. The butler obviously was not comfortable with Black's help, but Black insisted. Mrs. Hampton was at the door, and obviously she was very glad to see Angelica home. And she introduced Black to Mrs. Hampton. I want you to meet Blakely Tanner Granny Hampton. He is from Tuller, Kansas, and he is here to St. Louis on business. We met on the train. He is a very nice cowboy, and he will be spending the night with us. How about the second floor north room? Sounds good, Mr. Tanner. It is good to have you. And welcome. Any friend of Angelica is a friend of ours.